Today I'm reacting to your Friday Night Smackdown hot takes. And apparently your hot takes on all the WWE releases as well, because that's what everyone is talking about right now. Yeah, it probably wasn't a good idea to announce all of these releases like 30 minutes before Smackdown went live. Hot Takes is a weekly video series where I give you all a platform to be able to voice your thoughts, whether those are good thoughts, bad thoughts, or everything in between about the world of professional wrestling. So if you'd like to be featured in the next episode of Hot Takes, make sure that you're following me on X, because I ask for your hot takes there after every episode of Raw, Smackdown, and every single WWE Premium Live event. Now, if you are looking for our review of this particular episode of Friday Night Smackdown, it's already up and available with footage on the Patreon. Over there, we upload so much more extra content like the Raw reviews, Smackdown reviews that never get uploaded here. So go check it out, patreon.com/SantisApp, link in the description, as well as a link in the pinned comment for you. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know that you're going to fall in love with his YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. All right, let's read your stupid shit. The releases right before the show are dirty work. Listen, I understand that companies do mass layoffs because of budget cuts all of the time. It's just part of the natural life cycle of the corporate world. Hell, I've been a victim of being fired from my big boy corporate job because of budget cuts as well, and it absolutely sucks ass. However, what I'm not going to do here is demonize the WWE and look at them as some sort of evil entity simply because they made a financial business decision, but I'm absolutely going to criticize them. I think it's crazy to have the news of all of these releases be released to the world right before of an episode of Friday Night Smackdown. And I gotta imagine that this is by design, because this isn't the first time that this has happened. My logic is that they probably do this so that you're so focused on that episode of Friday Night Smackdown that you're not really gonna care about all of these releases. However, it has the complete opposite effect because everyone talks about the releases and no one talks about that episode of Friday Night Smackdown. One of the best things about being an internet wrestling fan, as toxic as the world is to be part of the live discussion as the show is going on, whether it's all the good stuff or all of the bad stuff that's going on. But when you have all of these releases happen right before an episode of Friday Night Smackdown, the discussion happening online is purely about all of those releases, and then you start getting all the conspiracy theories happening as to X, Y, or Z person were released, and no one is talking about the show. And I said that this isn't the first time that they've done this before, which leads me to believe that they do this by design, because they did this all the way back in 2024, November 1st, an episode of Friday Night Smackdown right before Crown Jewel, where they, right before the show, let go Baron Corbin, Indy Hartwell, and Tegan Nox. Mind you, that was a pre-recorded episode of Friday Night Smackdown, so we learned about the release of Indy Hartwell, and then Indy Hartwell appeared on that episode of Friday Night Smackdown. Listen, I just think that they just gotta do this better. They need to organize this a little bit better so it doesn't overshadow the conversation going on about the show. I understand that these decisions have to happen. You can't just have a bloated roster until the end of time. People have to be let go, but doing it this way completely removes the wind out of the sails of the show that you're putting on, and people don't talk about the show. Instead, they talk about this other side of the business. Frankly, I'm surprised that they don't do this on Wednesdays to overshadow the conversation about AEW Dynamite. If I was a WWE corporate exec, that's probably what I would do. Anyways, doing these releases like an hour before Friday Night Smackdown, it sucks ass. I don't like it. This episode was a snooze fest. It was, I mean, it wasn't bad, but this was definitely an episode that didn't move the needle. I watched this after the fact. Many of you know that I was on vacation. I just came back from Miami. I put on Smackdown when I got home, and I was abusing the ever-living hell out of the fast forward button because it just sort of felt like we were sort of treading water here. Again, nothing that was overtly bad, but this was just a Friday Night Smackdown episode that was really safe and really didn't move the needle on anything. With these releases, I'm convinced the WWE is killing the women's mid-card and tag titles. You have 3 brands for the tag titles and no one to fight for them now, and you don't have hardly anyone for the mid-cards on the main roster. Huge L for the women's division. Okay, so a lot to talk about here, and I mostly want to focus on the tag team side of things, because absolutely, when I look at these releases, this to me just signifies that you just need to kill the tag team titles in general. When you look at Katana Chance and Kaden Carter, they are pretty much the only team that WWE had on the main roster that was an actual from the ground up tag team. And in the previous set of releases, they had released the other one in the Unholy Union. So that's crazy to me. And then right after that, Dakota Kai, somebody that could have been in the tag team division with Damage Control, with the return of Asuka looming, or Kairi Sane. Shayna Baszler pretty much exclusively been in the tag team division. Gigi Dolan and Cora Jade both been in the NXT side tag team division. Hell, Cora Jade's last main match was a #1 contenders match for those tag titles. And then Jakara Jackson, her last match was that very same match. And her entire identity has been in the women's tag team division. To me, this signifies that there is just no desire to build that division at all. I think we're at the point where you either just need to completely retire these titles or maybe move them down to NXT completely, because you just don't have the bodies to actually have an interesting women's tag team division. And well, you already were struggling with the correct bodies and you let go most of the ones that worked in that division. Unfortunately, the women's tag team division is going to continue to be relegated to, hey, you're doing nothing, you're single stars, let's put you together in a tag team for a couple of weeks, and yeah, sure, you go for the tag titles for a little while. For last time ever, this Orton/Cena build is entirely too short. Could have been a whole month of nostalgia built up instead of the 2 weeks we got. I agree, wholeheartedly. I would have loved a much longer build up and feud between a heel Cena and a babyface Orton, but this is just sort of the time crunch that WWE pretty much put themselves in by putting Backlash 3 weeks after WrestleMania. Listen, this wouldn't have been a big problem had the matches going into Backlash been just continuations of what happened at WrestleMania, but instead, many of the matches that are happening at Backlash aren't continuations of what's happened at WrestleMania. Instead, they've tried to build feuds from the ground up in the 3 weeks that they had. It's not just Cena and Orton, but it's also Jey Uso and Logan Paul. It's also the Fatal 4-Way for the United States Championship. They've added new bodies in here, even though there is some continuation from WrestleMania there as well. And then, of course, Pat McAfee and Gunther, something brand new from the ground up. Normally, Backlash, you're able to just sort of piggyback off of everything that you've already built at WrestleMania. But here, for this year, they decided to do an entire reset of the feuds with only 3 weeks to build to the show, and it's making these feuds, specifically Orton and Cena, suffer because of it. Randy casually reminded everyone to stop sleeping on him when it comes to his promo work. He may not be the Punks or the Heymans or even the Cenas of the world, but he's in his own class with promos. In many ways, he's still one of the most underrated wrestlers from the Ruthless Aggression era. Randy Orton is just a perfect professional wrestler. There's not an aspect of his game that he is bad at. There are aspects of his game that he absolutely does not get enough credit for. I think that his promo work is #1, and his ability to sell is also just incredible. Think about how many times we've thought, oh shit, he's re-injured his back, because he's just so good at making you believe through that screen that he is going through nasty pain and agony. Randy Orton, to me, is the perfect professional wrestler. Like, if you try to create a professional wrestler in a test lab, in a test tube, with all of the perfect features that you would try and make a WWE superstar out of, Randy Orton is what would come out of those tests. I've always known that Randy Orton is incredibly underrated on the mic, but I do believe that we're seeing some of his best mic work in this feud with John Cena, whether it's alongside John Cena or being by himself like he was in this episode of Friday Night Smackdown. He's just so believable in everything that he says, and the intensity that he says it with doesn't feel fake or manufactured. It feels real, and that to me is a skill on its own, where Randy Orton might be the best at making his intensity not feel forced. Yeah, Randy Orton is absolutely amazing. I have nothing but good things to say about Randy.
I have to say the agility though.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, white noise. Oh, on the hardest part of the ring. Bro, what the hell? What the hell is that? That, folks, was a sneak peek of this week's Wrestling is Cool Match Club, available exclusively on patreon.com/SantiZap. The theme of this week is nothing but 5-star matches. So we'll be looking at the Lucha Brothers, Penta and Rey Fenix, taking on Laredo Kid and Hijo del Vikingo from AAA in 2021. Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker in a Hell in a Cell match at Bad Blood 1997. Shuri and Utami from Stardom back in 2021. Kenny Omega versus Rey Fenix from AEW Dynamite, also in 2021. And we're looking at the Intercontinental Championship Classic between Gunther and Sheamus at Clash at the Castle 2022. You'll be getting this and more, like the Raw review, Smackdown reviews, all the PLE reviews, the podcast 3 days early, and a whole host of extra other pieces of content that never get uploaded here to YouTube because they would just get blocked due to copyright. So go check it out, patreon.com/SantiZap. I'm confident that if you try it even for just 1 month, that you will fall in love with it. If you're already a patron, thank you so much for your support, but now let's get you back to the video. I love what they're doing with the Luchadors on SmackDown. Since they have made the US title the only main event title of the Blue brand, the boys are doing a great job in backstage storytelling. They are brilliant in ring and character work. You know what? I can't disagree here. I do think that they still have a lot of work to do. You're mostly referring to Legado del Fantasma and the stuff going on with Andrade. I think it was nice seeing Santos Escobar back in the ring in singles competition, but the man still cannot get a reaction to save his life. Again, I appreciate them trying and developing characters and making something interesting out of Berto, but there is still something missing, and I think that something missing will always be connecting with the crowd, because it's not just Santos, it is all of them. They do struggle connecting with the crowd, and I'm actually seeing that a difficulty in connecting with the WWE crowd, even from Rey Fenix. But either way, I do love that they are trying. I'm hoping that eventually there will be that eureka moment that allows the fans to properly connect with what they're seeing here from the Luchadors. LA Knight continues to get the loudest pop of the night every week. He has to win Money in the Bank this year. So one of the things that I said several weeks ago was that there was going to be an opportunity for somebody to become a star out of the United States Championship division, because there's a vacuum right now. There's no Cody Rhodes. John Cena is a part-time champion. Randy Orton is feuding against a part-time champion. So it was going to make, by default, the United States Championship picture the main event scene from the men's side of things on Friday Night SmackDown. And I ended up being right in that assessment. And now that means that there is a magnifying glass on everyone that's a part of this division. And there is an opportunity to make yourself a star and make yourself undeniable with all of this extra shine and limelight on you. And I do think that that person is LA Knight. He's the one that's taking the advantage of this right now. Now more than ever, the guys that are part of the United States Championship picture, they need to make themselves stand out as main event players, because eventually the actual main event players will come back, and you do not want to be left behind when they do. You want to be part of the conversation when they come back. And at this pace, man, LA Knight, he might just be in that conversation once everyone comes back. Whatever the WWE wants to get out of Damian Priest, their better option to scratch that itch is Aleister Black. Damian has gotten annoying, in my opinion. Meanwhile, Aleister has me incredibly excited after the in-ring work and presentation that I have seen so far. That is a hot take. That is a hot take, because I can see where you're coming from. Absolutely. However, I'm going to reserve my judgment, and I won't agree with you until I can see what they are going to do with Aleister Black from a character point of view. Because Damian Priest, you might not love his character, but his promos are pretty good and he connects with the crowd. Can Aleister Black do that as well? From an in-ring perspective, I think that Aleister Black is significantly more entertaining, but we'll have to see if from a character point of view, if he can reach the levels that Damian Priest has been able to reach. I don't think that Damian Priest is in some sort of like god tier of fan interaction and fan connection, but he did it. He's made a name for himself with the fans, with his promos. Can Aleister Black do that in his second run in the WWE? That is going to be the biggest question mark with Aleister Black. From an in-ring perspective, there's no question about it. Let's just see if he's able to connect with the crowd. This is now the third time LA Knight has managed to not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. The match versus Priest was really good, and once the Fatal 4-Way is done, maybe a WWE Universal title shot is next. Here's the thing, I do think that the best option for LA Knight after this is a main event world title, but honestly, I think it's the World Heavyweight Championship. When you have a champion like Jey Uso and his number one contender is Logan Paul, I think that anything is possible, and it's going to be really easy to have a believable contender in LA Knight in that championship picture compared to if you were going to enter the world of like the Randys, the John Cenas, and the Cody Rhodes of the world. He's already kind of tried that before, going after Roman Reigns and having that Fatal 4-Way with AJ Styles and Randy Orton, but no one ever really believed that he was going to walk out as the champion. But with the World Heavyweight Championship, with how extra over LA Knight is getting with this United States Championship being in the main event thing that's going on, I think that a big gold belt is honestly in the near future for LA Knight. Wrestling kind cannot gain anything without first giving something in return. The cost of returns and call-ups, someone else has to go. They really should change when exactly the releases go out, like Wednesday, when it won't completely overshadow an event. So yeah, in that last part, you and I completely agree. Absolutely, they need to change when they announce all of these releases. Unfortunately, with the first part that you said, it's too long. logical. And in this world of the internet wrestling community, people don't want to buy logic. Instead, they want to create conspiracy theories, mostly based around political views and other stuff, and try and connect dots that maybe are there, maybe they're not. But really, at the end of the day, I just think it's a money decision. In fact, actually, let me retract this. I don't even think it's a money decision. I think it's a time decision, because WWE clearly is doing fine. I mean, if they're going to charge $40,000+ for SummerSlam front row seats, I think they're doing just fine. I don't think it's that if they don't fire these people that they're going to have to close the doors or anything like that. But when you bring in more people, like you've said, when you call up more people, like you said, there isn't enough TV time to go around. It's unfortunately a business cycle that happens at the same time every single year, and it always brings out the worst out of some of the online wrestling fans. And it's not just like looking for reasons as to why people were fired. You find people online celebrating that people were fired, or saying, well, this person got fired, why not that person? Like, dude, like, fucking read the goddamn room. People are losing their jobs, and you're over here throwing a party because certain people were fired, or trying to create this grand conspiracy theory as to why they were fired. I think it's just as simple as this happens every goddamn year. I don't know why we're surprised every time that it happens. I'm surprised at a couple of the names. Absolutely, we'll talk more about that here, but I'm not surprised that budget cuts happen even in profitable companies. These companies, whether it's WWE, Apple, wherever it is that you work, they don't give a shit about you. You are just a driver, a vehicle to make them revenue. You are just a number on a data sheet. There's no emotional connection. If you aren't a asset to them, they just let your ass go, whether it's WWE or Microsoft. But because of this emotional attachment that many wrestling fans have to the product and to the wrestlers themselves, to a level of weirdness, if I'm being frank with you, it creates some just crazy discussions every single time, every single year at the same time. I think R-Truth is slowly turning heel after the segment we saw him with Randy Orton, and we haven't seen a heel R-Truth since 2011. I am riveted by everything that's going on with R-Truth. I hope that it actually builds to a big moment between him and John Cena. I don't know what that moment will be. I kind of hope that it's a moment where John Cena kind of acknowledges R-Truth as his only true real fan. I definitely don't want to see him break our hearts and attack R-Truth. That would really cement Cena as just like the biggest piece of shit on the planet. Braun being released is baffling. I was liking the battles with Jacob and Bronson, and we don't have many big men anymore. It's nice to have someone like him in this roster. To me, this is the most baffling of all of the releases. We're talking about somebody that was on pretty much every episode of Friday Night SmackDown. He was main eventing episodes of Friday Night SmackDown. He was having absolute banger after banger after banger on SmackDown. So to see him be released is a little bit bizarre to me. Look, I understand many of the names that were released. Many of them just weren't being used at all by the WWE, but Braun Strowman was not that guy. Braun Strowman absolutely was being used, so I don't get this one at all. The women's tag team division is done. Maybe drop the titles in its entirety and focus on the mid-card singles in the women's division. Honestly, at this point, yeah, you probably should do that. The women's tag team division, for the most part, is just littered with single stars being put together in a quasi tag team for a temporary amount of time. So if you're just mostly having single stars in the mid-card, you might as well have them go after mid-card singles titles, right? I mean, to me, that's what's logical here. Clearly, you have no interest in building the women's tag team division based on some of the releases that you've done over the last 12 months. So focus on the new titles, I guess, and just retire these women's tag titles, if you ask me. Aleister Black and The Miz put on a fantastic show, and seeing the crowd really behind him was heartwarming. Welcome back. This really was an entertaining match. Listen, The Miz does not get enough love for how good he makes other people look. This man was absolutely selling his ass off for everything that Aleister Black was doing. But for me, the thing that got me the most excited was the potential of Aleister Black versus Carmelo Hayes. That to me is what I'm looking forward to the most. But again, I'll say it again. For me, the biggest question mark is the actual character of Aleister Black. What will he be like, and what will his promos sound like, and will those promos resonate with the crowd? From an in-ring, I'm already sold again on Aleister Black. Dakota's release might be a blessing in disguise. Like with Tony and Mercedes, she can find a spot and thrive in it because she's just that damn good. I think Dakota's release is also kind of crazy to me. When you are trying to build the women's mid-card, she was about as mid-card as it got. People were really behind Dakota Kai, so to me, this was a bit of a weird one. I understand, I guess, to a degree, considering they weren't using her when she was healthy, but why? She could have been a perfect player in either of the mid-card titles, but here we are. If anything, like you said, a blessing in disguise. This is why we need a healthy wrestling industry. This is why we need a healthy TNA, a healthy AEW, a healthy international circuit, a healthy indie circuit, so that these wrestlers, when they're let go, they're not going to go off and starve. Because like you said, man, like Dakota is incredibly talented and somebody's going to scoop her up immediately. Melo versus Aleister Black could be the feud to propel him into the big time. So what do you mean by him? By him, do you mean Aleister Black, or by him, do you mean him? By him, I mean Carmelo Hayes, because Carmelo Hayes is him. You know this, right? Anyways, I just wanted an excuse to say him a bunch of times. Yeah, this is going to be an awesome match, hopefully an awesome feud, and I think it could propel both of hims. Miz is so underappreciated. He always puts over the guys that WWE wants to push and fully sells their moves. His top of the card days are long over, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have a big role in the company. I, for one, appreciate what he does. I appreciate it as well. Listen, there is always going to be room for somebody like Miz, somebody that can make other people look good, somebody that can be a stepping stone. It does help that he has the resume that he has. Many people will argue that he doesn't deserve the resume that he has, but he has it nonetheless. So having somebody like Aleister Black come in and beat a former WWE champion, a Grand Slam champion, as he'll always remind you, one of the guys that beat John Cena in the main event of WrestleMania, to me, is great for the Aleister Blacks of the world. More often than not, using the Miz as a stepping stone has always worked. It doesn't work every single time, but the last time that they did it and did it well was with LA Knight, and I think that they're doing a pretty good job so far with Aleister Black. Again, I need to see what Aleister Black's character is going to be. Is it too early to say that SmackDown is desperately missing Kevin Owens right now? It is never too early to say that. Absolutely, they are missing Kevin Owens. They're just missing star power in general. They're missing Kevin Owens, Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes. It does feel like there's a big vacuum in the main event scene, and they're having to use the women's main event scene as well as the men's mid card to try and plug up those holes wherever they can. But the star power is absolutely missing from SmackDown, and it's hurting the show. Not a hot take, but brother, here's a hot take. People keep complaining about ticket prices, but still buying them. As long as you let them milk you like them, they will keep on doing whatever they want, including release talent. Oh yeah, dude, when it comes to like the release of talent, that'll never stop. That's the one thing that I want to make that clear. It doesn't matter how profitable WWE is. There is only enough TV time for a certain finite number of talent that you can sign. And if you have too many, you're just going to have a bunch on the sideline. And at some point, you just can't have that much redundancy in your business. Redundancy is important. Like every business should have redundancy, because if somebody goes down, you need people to step in. But when you keep bringing in more people, when you keep utilizing NXT as a farm system to bring people up, eventually Jenga pieces have to be removed. When it comes to ticket pricing, I still think it's crazy that people are paying what the WWE is asking and what On Location is asking. We all clown the $40,000 SummerSlam tickets. Guess what? They're sold out. And so long as people keep buying these ridiculous tickets at these insane prices, not only will they keep charging that, they'll keep going up. I'm just glad that Naomi didn't take the pin. Do you think WWE is trying to protect her? I absolutely do. In fact, I think that Naomi, if you ask me, is the best option to be the one to dethrone Tiffany Stratton. I don't think that anybody wants to see Nia Jax winning the championship. I think that Jade Cargill is better served chasing a heel, and I think that Tiffany Stratton is better off losing to another heel. And right now, the best heel right now in the women's division is Naomi. I think she's the one that should eventually dethrone Tiffany Stratton to set us up for a championship match, a WrestleMania rematch between Jade Cargill and Naomi. Are they protecting her? I absolutely think that they are. Not only that, but they're making her look strong because she's the one that got to stand tall at the end of the episode with that title. I don't understand why people still complain about fatal four-ways or triple threats. Literally, the best Mania matches have been multi-man matches. I understand why. I think for Mania, it's a little bit different because usually they put in enough effort from the storytelling perspective to make that triple threat or fatal four-way, whatever it might be, actually make sense. But sometimes they don't do a good enough job at actually creating a good cohesive story. So it just sort of feels like they're putting in 3, 4 guys and girls for the sake of just doing it. I will say, I feel like they've done a a good enough job at making this a good cohesive storyline. I feel like there's good interconnected threads between all of these guys. But at the end of the day, like, your best storytelling, in rare occasions, it could be something like the triple threat that happened in the main event of night one. But in most cases, your best storytelling will always happen in a one-on-one environment. Santos Escobar is lucky to not be released. Nothing against him or his in-ring work, but wow, the zero noise when he comes out to the ring from the crowd. Remove the music and you'd hear a pin drop. Worst thing in wrestling is no reaction. I really like Santos Escobar from an in-ring perspective, but I cannot defend anything that you're saying here. Like, you're right. Like, there is no reaction when Santos Escobar comes out. He's great at making people look good in the ring. He's really crisp. He can have great matches. He's a great luchador, but my goodness, there is a charisma void there. There is just no connecting at all with the crowd. And this isn't a recent thing. It's pretty much always been a thing, right down from when he was part of Legato when he initially came to the main roster. Then LWO, like, there is just no connecting with the crowd with Santos, unfortunately. It's a shame that there were two botches in the match. The crowd was really into it. The first was Pretty Deadly's mistake, and the second was clearly from the ref, who was already nervous from what had happened. Yeah, that shit does happen. And unfortunately, I think this is one of those situations that, like, when it rains, it pours. I think that you're right. The ref was probably rattled from the first pin error. So the second one just sort of came a bit more naturally because of those nerves. But the match was still solid. I still think that the tag team division is in a great spot. Fraxium still look great. I really like Pretty Deadly, but yeah, unfortunately, when it rains, it pours with botches. Randy mentioning Cena selling out to The Rock can only mean one thing. The Rock is planning to make a comeback to try and repair the damage of his image. Hopefully, we get a payoff this time. Doubt it. All right, folks, thank you so much for watching this episode of Hot Takes. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Goodbye. Get out of here.